Hey y'all, it's Brandon. I got that book for Christmas, the Oxy-Acetylene Welders Handbook, and I was going through it, and it's old school book, first printing in '29, and it had a lot of neat stuff about carbide generators, producing your own acetylene to fill your tanks. Now, of course, that's pretty much completely ridiculous to do now. You can just swap your tanks out or run them and get them filled. But it really got me to thinking about carbide because, believe it or not, I used to be a very avid caver, and I actually ran a rock climbing and caving program for several years at a rafting company, and worked at another commercial cave, and was skinny and caved all the time. And this was long enough ago that most of us thought it was really cool to use carbide lights. And I've still got a drum of carbide and several lights running around. If I see one cheap, I pick it up. So anyway, I thought I would just explain calcium carbide to you and show you what these lights are and how they work, and kind of tell you what my thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of them are. So anyway, first I'll tell you what I know about carbide, and I am not a scientist, so yeah, you need me to tell you that for you to be able to figure it out. But I'll tell you what I know about carbide, show you how the light works, how carbide works, and then I'll give you a couple of stories about some carbide lights and carbide stuff. Okay, here's the basic concept behind it. You've got calcium carbide, which when it's fresh, it's black, or at least dark gray. So this is several years old, and it's been exposed to some just regular air, so humidity and moisture. So you've got a lot of white and brown and gray in there, not a lot of black. Some dark gray though. But how this is made is industrial coke, which is essentially coal with the impurities removed. When you're using it in a blacksmith forge, you basically heat the coal without letting it have oxygen. You keep it wet and burn it, and that's how you create that type of coke. Industrial coke is a totally different animal. This is a piece of industrial coke. It's hard. You have to break it up with a hammer. It's nothing like the coke that blacksmiths produce in our forge ourselves. So anyway, this is industrial coke. Now they take that and it is put in an electric furnace. I don't know what happens there. I don't know how it works. I don't understand the chemical change that happens, but that's how we get calcium carbide. Apparently it was a byproduct of some procedure and was discovered by accident. The calcium carbide, being a byproduct of something, was dumped outside, water, from rain, smoke break, you can imagine. But anyway, this is where acetylene comes from. And how that works is when you add water to calcium carbide, the chemical reaction is to produce acetylene. Also go more water, more acetylene. This is how torches used to be, oh boy. This is how torches used to be filled. This is, of course, carbide lights. There were carbide generators in homes. You can see the bubbles, that's all acetylene. Okay, so on to how the lights work. Now this is a Just Right cap lamp made by the Universal Lamp Company. And this is when I got this one, it had never been fired. I don't know, I think it was made in the 70s. I could be wrong. This is the hook and wire one. It would have originally had a wire that came off and came out like this to hook onto a soft cap. This one with this type of attachment wouldn't have been used hard rock mining. This was a sportsman's light, fishermen, hunters, things like that. But anyway, the way this works, it's got a bottom that screws off, and it's got a gasket between the bottom and the top. Now the bottom is where you put your carbide. I've already got carbide in there so you can see the carbide. You fill it about 3/4 of the way up with carbide. And then you've got a felt in here and a felt holder. There's the felt. I'm not going to pull it out. Here's the felt holder. Now, what that felt does is you've got a hole here that comes out through your tip, and when the gas is generated, it keeps the hydrated lime dust, which is the byproduct of the chemical reaction that produces the acetylene, from clogging the hole. And the way it's produced is we put water in the top. Move it over here to do that. And we put water in the top, and then we control the flow of water with this right here. We can slow it to just barely a drip, and we can open it to pretty much a stream. Now, the faster water's dripping out of here into here, the more acetylene is being produced, and the bigger the flame. Now the tip is a ceramic tip encased in brass, and they will blow out. It's not a screw-in tip. It's made so that if too much pressure develops, it'll actually blow the tip out of here. Now, you probably noticed the flint wheel over here. Well, I'm out of flints, so not a smoker anymore, so I'm just going to use this to light it. But that's the flame, and with the reflector, it throws off a little bit of a spot, and not only that, it gives all around light. Okay, now that's the basics on how a cap lamp works. Like I showed you, this hook, this is, sportsmen use these, but the ones that we use caving, and the ones that were used in hard rock mining, that would be mounted to a helmet, had a flat blade, and it would go into the brackets on our helmets, which would either be like this bracket has a slot in it for that flat blade, or different kind of helmets had different brackets, but they usually use that because it was more sturdy than the wire. But that's cap lamp. This one is a Just Right, like I said. The common American made ones that you find, the common American made ones that you find in the Southeast anyway, are Just Rights, Autolites, and gas droppers. You also find Premiers pretty regularly. They were British manufactured light, and they didn't stop manufacturing them until into the 90s, so you still find those every now and then. And you see a lot of butterflies. They're made in India. Wouldn't fool with the butterfly. They're just low quality lights. But it's cap lamps, and that's you use those a lot. You get about 2 hours of light out of, depending on how big you run your flame, of course, out of a charge of carbide. Now, by the early 90s, these were really kind of starting to go away. And the carbides that most people were using were generator lights, which this is a carbide generator right here and a generator light. And basically, this is a large version of what's going on in the cap lamp right here. You screw the bottom off and you put your carbide in here. It has a reservoir up top for water. Water drips on the carbide, produces acetylene, only this acetylene runs all the way down this hose to a headpiece. And the headpiece has piezoelectric ignition. You've got a tip that instead of putting out a horizontal flame, this puts a vertical flame that's flat and wide. And I usually run my flame about yay tall. And it was usually about that wide. And so it put off real good light. But these were known to cavers as either ceiling burners because it has a vertical flame. And whenever a carbide whenever you take it and the flame goes across something, it leaves a soot line. So with these being a vertical flame, they put a soot line down a crawlway you were going down. So ceiling burners or gobblers, because they would suck the carbide. Another thing about this is you know, if you turn the carbide, you know, on its side, it changes what's going on in there. And you can get some crazy things happening. Your flame can get real big all of a sudden or go out. Well, because these are, you know, down here on your hip, they're constantly getting turned on the side and shook up, so your flame would shoot up big and go down low. So that was something you had to watch. Unless you had, there was a generator made in Slovenia. This is in the late 90s, and a buddy of mine had one of those, and it was pressurized. You pressurized it by pumping. It had a little hand plunger, and you pump it. And they seem to work pretty good, but I don't know, the company, it's the Balkans, they probably blew up or something. But those are generator lights, and they were very popular. More popular in Europe than the States, really. Somebody's probably going to argue with me on that, but that's okay. But we used carbides because at the time, it gave you all the way around light. And the electric lights that we had, you know, the night lights, the week lights, the Petzl Megas, the Just Right corded lights, just all the lights that were available to us, you had a spot right here. And it wasn't as good a light. LEDs, you know, what was that? The first LEDs to come along that any of us saw were the Tikas, which were a Petzl light with 3 little LEDs, and I think you could get like 9 hours out of 3 AAA batteries, and we were amazed by that. So this predates the LED. Some of the advantages of a carbide was, of course, you had a fire. It was warm. If you sat down to take a break, you know, if you're caving, at least in the southeastern United States, when you sit down, you start to cool off real quick. You take your carbide and kind of keep yourself warm, keep from getting that shake going on. So you had that. You know, like I said, the all the way around light. You didn't have to move your head to look. You know, if you wanted to look down, you could just move your eyes down. You didn't have to move your whole head down to see down. That was a big deal. Disadvantages: you would burn yourself. I'd like to say that you never burned yourself, but you would burn yourself. You'd get crawling and burn yourself. I never used carbide when I was on rope, doing any kind of vertical caving, either rappelling or ascending. I didn't do it. I didn't like the idea of hanging from a thin piece of nylon with a fire on my head. So, never did fool with that much. But there are also large handheld carbide lights. Essentially, they look like giant cap lamps. And they're also cap lamps with these enormous reflectors, several inches across, look like pipe lamps. But those are, you know, sportsman use kind of thing. Let's see, there's also our bicycle carbide lights that were headlamps for bicycles and cars. There were those, and then there were entire house carbide generator systems. My dad grew up in the 40s and 50s here in Middle Tennessee, and at that time there was electricity, but if you weren't up on a main road, you just didn't have electricity. And so he said there was one house that was always just lit up, just so bright, and it was the bootleggers. You know, they had the kind of disposable income that will buy a carbide generator. They had a big generator out back that they would, essentially it was a huge version of this. Carbide in the bottom, gravity-fed water to produce acetylene, and hoses running through the house to light fixtures in each room, chandeliers and stuff. Well, my grandfather, his dad, stopped in there one day. He had to see this man about something, and Daddy said he wanted to see the lights, and he brought him in, and he got to see the gas lights in there. But which I think that's kind of neat to see how far we have come in 60 years. So that's something kind of neat. But anyway, this is Carbide. These are the lights. As I come across some more of my old lights here and there, I'll maybe do another video when I have several of them out and show them to you so you can see some of the differences. But anyway, I hope y'all got something out of this. You know, it's kind of nostalgic for me, but I hope y'all got something out of this. If you like the video, please hit the like button down there. And if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comments below. And we will see y'all later. So y'all behave yourselves.